Welcome to competitive wargroove. There are some moments where you should reinforce and some moments when you shouldn't. I see even veteran players make this mistake, so I thought I would make a video going through the times to reinforce and the times to not reinforce. Obviously I can't cover every situation, but I'm going to cover some critical ones that I've seen folks make mistakes on time and time again. But first, before I get into that, I'm going to tell you how reinforcing works, and if you know that already at a very, very high level, you can use the timestamps in the description to skip to the next part of the video. So first, how does reinforcing work? Well, you take a damaged unit and you move it adjacent to an allied village or village you own. So that's right, you can even reinforce off of your 2v2 partner's village. When you move them to the village, you get the reinforce option. What that does is it transfers health from the village to the unit. Now it transfers percentage health and it can't bring the village below 1% health. That means at most the village can transfer 99% of its health to the unit. Now what is the cost of doing this? Well, obviously the village gets weaker. It's giving up health and giving it to the unit. You also have to pay gold equal to the percentage of the unit that you're healing. So for example, this sword, if you can see, is at 1% health. I'm going to heal it by transferring 99% of this village's health to the sword. That's going to cost 99% of a sword. A sword costs 100 gold. I picked swords because the math is so easy on them. 99% of 100 is 99, so I will have to pay 99 gold. And as you can see, the health is transferred from the village to the sword. The sword is at 100% and the village is at 1%. Now, if you're in a situation like this, where you don't need all of the village's health, no problem, you'll automatically reinforce for the maximum amount you can get. This unit needs 10% more health and the village has plenty to give. So I'll reinforce, get 10% of the village's health transferred to my soldier, lose 10% of the village's health, and it will cost me 10% of the worth of a sword, which is 10 gold. Obviously, if I was doing this with a mage instead, cost would be 4 times as much. So it would cost me 40 gold to reinforce the same amount of health on a mage. And similarly, golems are really expensive to reinforce. You get the idea. Let's look at some other scenarios. Let's say the village doesn't have enough health to completely heal the unit. That is no problem. You will automatically reinforce for the maximum amount you can. Since the village has 30% health, in order to stay at least 1%, it can transfer up to 29% of its health to the sword. So the 1% sword gets 29% of the village's health, and I pay 29 gold to make it happen. Now you can actually reinforce with multiple villages at once. If you're adjacent to 2 villages, you reinforce off of both. In this situation, I have a 20% village that can offer 19% health, and a 30% village that can offer 29% health. Add the two together, they can reinforce 48% of my sword for 48 gold. Okay, now what happens if one of the villages is kind of low and another of the villages is high? Well, the low village will completely get exhausted and the high village will give as much as it can. But what if neither village would get exhausted? What happens if I have 2 villages at different health and I want to do reinforcing? Well, both villages give up the exact same amount of health. And if one of them gets to 1%, the other village then has to foot the rest of the health. I don't know if you knew this or not, but you can also reinforce off of production facilities like towers and barracks. Additionally, you can reinforce off of the same building multiple times. Keep in mind though, you can't and shouldn't reinforce off of the stronghold. Alright, we've completely covered reinforcing. Let's take it to the competitive scene and see some higher level strategies. Now, this is a really big one, throwing you right in there. In a lot of competitive maps, the commanders don't start at full health. They start at less than full health. And sometimes your commander might be low, or any unit might be low, even in the middle of a match. And you might be tempted to instantly reinforce your commander or that big unit. But wait, don't do it yet. If you're short on time, you're running the clock, you gotta make a move. You might want to do your builds first to make sure you have enough money. After all, you don't want to be doing all this math in your head to make sure, okay, if I heal this, I'll be left with this much gold, and will that be enough for my unit? I don't know. Just build the unit first. In this situation, I want a mage to capture this village. I want to build a mage. So why don't I build that mage first to make sure I don't accidentally drain myself of all my gold, and then reinforce. Additionally, when your commander's at low health at the start of a match, you almost always want to reinforce them as soon as possible, with 3 exceptions. 1. Don't miss a build. You don't want to do it if it's going to cost you a build. 2. Don't reinforce now if you can do it at a turn for the same price. I could also reinforce at this village, and every turn I wait gives me an additional 5% healing for my commander. That being said, you do not, I repeat, do not want to wait too long. Having a full health commander is super valuable, and weakening your front villages could let your opponent take them. So, first, don't miss a build. Second, if you can wait a turn, think carefully about it. You might not want to wait, but if you really can wait, go ahead, save a little bit of gold. And number 3, in addition to don't miss a build, don't mess up your opening. If healing prevents your commander from capturing a key property or moving to a key position, then you might want to delay it a little bit. But as soon as humanly possible, reinforce that commander off of a barracks, off of a village, get them to full health, and get swinging. Additionally, it's good advice in general, to wait to reinforce a unit until you're done with your builds to make sure that you have enough money. Unless reinforcing is your priority, in which case do that first. Alright, let's look at another common scenario. Should I reinforce? Should I reinforce here? The answer is yes. If I don't reinforce, if I spend my money, let's say, building a full health knight over here instead, right? It's going to take the knight a few turns to get over here. And in the meantime, these swords have more than enough power to wipe out my army. Let's say running away isn't an option for some reason. They can just rout me, they can drive me off these villages, they can move more troops in. They're at a huge advantage if I don't reinforce here, and it'll take forever for the unit I build to get over here. This is the best possible time to reinforce. You can keep your units on the front lines really healthy, get a nice defensive and aggressive position, and make it so your opponent just kind of can't attack into you. But I made a mistake. I reinforced the pikes first. Really, I probably should have done the knight first, but I wasn't looking at my gold. Remember, I warned you about that earlier. Always look at your gold when you're reinforcing. Do your most important thing first. I should have healed the knight first, maybe, and then built something cheap like a sword to make sure I didn't miss a build. Then, reinforced a few of the units, and anything I couldn't reinforce, just retreat. Get it out of there. So you have to think about the order in which you do things. But in this type of situation, you do want to reinforce, maybe even over skipping a build, because you're going to win the next fight if you do. It's important to have 3 healthy, powerful units on the front lines, rather than 3 crappy units that are just going to die and not do anything, and 1 healthy unit in the back line. Alright, now let's take a look at this scenario. Do I want to reinforce here? Well, what do you think? Do you think I should reinforce? Let's think about what happens if I do reinforce. Let's think about the consequences of that action. If I reinforce, 99% of the health of this village gets transferred to this mage. And then the mage ends their turn right there next to the villages. Is that something I really want to happen? No. If I reinforce, it does a couple of bad things. First, my mage is a sitting duck and will get destroyed by these dogs. So I'll have spent 399 gold for nothing. Second, the village drops to 1% health. Dogs suck at taking villages. But now I've made that village vulnerable. 1 dog can smack it down and steal my income. The smart thing to do in this situation is just run away. Dogs can't catch me. I can heal up back here if I want to later or save the alchemist. And my village won't die to these dogs unless they take a lot of damage attacking into it, maybe even over 2 turns. So it's definitely the right decision to not reinforce if you're just going to immediately lose the unit and the village. Let's take a look at this scenario. My dragon's been dueling this mage. There are a couple other enemy units here. Do I reinforce? Pretend I had enough money. The answer is no. Even though the mage is too weak to hurt my dragon, it doesn't matter. I still should not reinforce. The reason is, if I reinforce, I'm spending almost the entire cost of a dragon, and I won't have enough money, realistically, to build anything else. If I want a dragon that badly, I should just build another dragon. It can get back to the front in 1 turn. I can retreat this, or just, kill the 1 health mage. either way. And then I'll have 2 dragons. Sure, one of them can't really attack anything, it's at 1% health, but it's an air unit, a flying body block. And on a later turn, I can reinforce it on the front lines if I need to for an aggressive push. For now, it's better to just have another dragon and not miss a build. So additionally, I don't want to weaken this village, right? We talked about that before. Why would I weaken this village and let my opponent take it easily and steal income? So in this situation, you just want to build another dragon. You'll get this with knights sometimes too. Now when it's, again, this situation, a couple of turns away from the front lines, okay, in that case, maybe reinforcing is better. If you really have to decide between reinforcing or building and you can't do both. You never want to miss a build if you can avoid it, but if you have to choose, it depends how far away the production is, what the unit is, and whether you're mounting the attack right now or in the middle of retreating. If you're retreating, just build another unit, pull this back. You'll need the unit count. All right, let's take a look at this scenario. Obviously, this isn't a super common scenario, right? I can't kill any of these dogs. They have infinite heals. Mercia can't escape. But it is a great example of a scenario you will see a lot of the time. You can't run away, or it's a bad decision to run away. It's better to stay and fight. In this kind of situation, here's something you can do that I see people forget a lot of the time. You can take an enemy village, capture it, and on that same turn, immediately reinforce off of it. I don't have enough gold to do that right now, but let's pretend I did. Let's pretend I did. Let's pretend I had enough gold to reinforce off of it. In that exact same turn when I steal it, I can reinforce, and lo and behold, I'm at full health again. So many people don't realize that. And this isn't just good for defense. This is good for when you're on the attack, pushing into enemy territory. You can take one of their villages and then heal your commander off of it after grabbing it for yourself. This lets you move your commander forward instead of back while keeping them at full health, being very aggressive and very powerful, keeping up tempo, mounting your attack. So these were a bunch of situations where you should or shouldn't reinforce, as well as a very, very in-depth guide on how reinforcing works. I think even pro players will have learned a thing or two about reinforcing on multiple villages that they might not have known. I hope you found this useful. I highly recommend checking out other videos in this competitive wargroove playlist. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. That's all for now, and welcome to Wargroove.